Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming today. So this is Spirited Sessions 2.0 for Halifax. So I really appreciate you guys coming out. Last time we had an amazing panel of people, and we discussed kind of the history of the cocktail in Halifax and its progression in the last 20, 30 years. And we left some kind of business on the table, so that's why we brought it back again this month to do kind of Halifax 2.0. So I appreciate you guys all coming out on Sunday, on your time off, on your days off, to come out here and learn about Halifax bartending. First off, I want to thank all of you coming and all of the panelists.
Lot 6.
And Lot 6.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Sarah.
And I want to thank Mezcal Coach, too. They have sponsored the event. You guys are all drinking some Mezcal Palomas right now. Later, there will be a cocktail called the Oaxacan in Japan, which you guys will be drinking some cucumber, lime, mezcal, and sake. Keys love that name. Yeah. First off, for any kind of like housekeeping rules, this time I want to kind of make it more of an open discussion. So if at any time you guys have any kind of real-time questions and you guys want to throw up your hand and ask myself or any of the panelists a question, feel free to do so. I want this to be a little bit more of an open discussion and to be able to talk things through a little bit more. So I want to start with kind of going through just a small brief introduction with everyone. Before we get started, I know most people here would know who these four people are, but just for anyone who wasn't here, anyone who doesn't know who these people are, just kind of a quick introduction. So,
Am I starting? Hello. I'm Jenner. I work at Bar Kismet. We'll go through lots more, I'm sure.
I'm Cooper. I also work at Bar Kismet.
My name's Jeff. I own. There we go.
Ooh.
I own Clever Barkeep, which is a bartending company, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
My name is Shane Bean. I work here at Lot 6. I was born in St. John's, Newfoundland, but raised in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. And Jenner and I actually grew up together in the same area, and Jeff was about a kilometer away. And so all three of us grew up at the same time in the same place. And the water in Dartmouth was good to us.
And we never met until.
Yeah.
Yeah.
cool.
And on that note, something that we actually just figured out the other night, Jenner and I at work, which is kind of crazy, is that, which is a good kind of kickoff point, this is the first time the four of us have been in the same room together.
Ever.
Ever.
I'm not kidding.
And one more cool further point to that is that Cooper's mom used to work here in the 70s when it was what? It was the newsroom. And she was pregnant with Cooper when she worked here. So when Cooper came a couple years ago and needed a shift here, he said he felt he came full circle because he was here as
a fetus.
I already knew the table.
He's the first one here.
So to kind of recap from the last session for those who weren't here, again, we kind of talked about the progression of the cocktail in Halifax and cocktail culture here. To kind of go back to like the 80s in Halifax was when kind of like pubs and taverns started to change into clubs and bars. People started caring a little bit more what they drank in the late 80s. In the 90s is when you got wine lists that were more than just red and white. You got a selection of different kinds of wines. 96, I think, is when Velvet Olive opened. Is that true? Yeah. And then from Velvet Olive, we grew kind of into some cocktail culture with Mosaic, or Bitter End opening after that, Mosaic after that, and we kind of progress into the drawing room from there, where Jenner kind of went up into the drawing room, and Jeff at Untitled Eats and at Taboo nightclub, and then progressing from kind of the nightclub cocktails into Bicycle Thief and Mill Spoon and Noble, and then from there kind of into more present day Lot 6, Field Guide, and stuff like that. So just to recap everyone, that's kind of where we are today. So to start off, I want to talk about kind of competitions and cocktail competitions in the bartending and cocktail world. Today, it seems like pretty much every giant company has, or any liquor company has a competition. So, Jenner, I just kind of want to ask you, as a macro, do you want to like kind of walk people through what you think cocktail competitions are about? Why do we have them, and what, just as a macro, or anyone who has a good point.
Macro on a side note, it's funny, I found out this week that Beefeater's not doing Mix It this year at all.
That's huge.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. They felt that it was too much bartender on bartender. The competition wasn't healthy for the brand, as they quoted to me, so they're eliminating their competition this year and coming back with something that's more involved with the community and something that will help bartenders grow instead of pit them against each other. So it's an interesting stance, and I wonder if other brands will jump on board. Beefeater's one of the largest gin companies in the world, arguably, behind Tanqueray or neck and neck with Tanqueray. So, but bartending competitions, I mean, I think all 4 of us have competed, judged, participated, bar-backed, the whole kind of 9 yards for bartending competitions, and most major brands have them, some more involved than others. Challenges can be a little more aggressive than others in certain competitions. The requirements, a lot of them didn't at least come to the East Coast for a very long time. Made with Love was the first one to show up, and then a lot of the other bartending competitions kind of followed suit and started opening their entries to the East Coast. But before that, it was Ontario, Quebec, Prairies. That was it. Yeah. Nothing east of Quebec. And so most of these brands had these big competitions that you could see and watch on. This is before YouTube, pre-YouTube. Imagine that. But these companies had these big bartending competitions with a laundry list of legal requirements to get into them, and then you submit a recipe essentially, and kind of go from there. A lot of times, like I said, one challenge or multiple challenges, and they kind of pit you against other bartenders that have submitted locally, then nationally, and sometimes internationally as well.
So I want to keep this whole discussion kind of in a Halifax context. So, Cooper, I want to kind of ask you about the late 90s and competitions. You had told me that I think probably late 90s, Wild Turkey competition was your very first competition, and it was at the Velvet Olive.
Dirty Bird.
Yeah.
So what was going on? What were people making then? Why was the competition on? Because now it's like these giant competitions are kind of like branding opportunities for companies. What brought this Wild Turkey competition to Velvet Olives?
I'm not sure of the logistics of it, because I was a really young bartender. I was bartending at the Thirsty Duck at the time, and the rep just needed representation, literally. And she's like, "Can you come down to the Velvet Olive and make a whiskey drink?" I drank a lot of Wild Turkey at the time. It was Thanksgiving. I did basically like a Thanksgiving dinner cocktail. Wild Turkey. I made a absolutely horrid cranberry cordial. And I can't remember the rest of it, but I had something that was representing gravy.
And stuffing?
Yeah. I didn't win, shockingly enough. Again, like referencing perspective, there were no bar tools at the time. Big Eric's didn't have anything. There was no Cocktail Kingdom.
Yeah.
There was no internet. I had to split my shaker over the martini glass to strain out the ice. I don't know, does anyone even know that move? Yeah. Right? I don't know who won. I think it was someone from New Brunswick. It was at the Velvet Olive.
How many people were in?
There was 8 of us in.
How'd you enter? What was the entry?
I literally showed up. There was no, yeah. There's no like filter system. It just show up, make a drink, 2 drinks in 5 minutes. It was on the DJ stage. The DJ was pounding music the entire time. There was no oral presentation necessary. My drink was that color of that coat, just like chemical red, unhealthy red.
So speaking of like with the 90s and bartending, I think as far back as like 95 maybe, the Coast has been doing kind of the best of and best bartenders and restaurants and stuff like that. What role would the best bartender in Halifax have meant in Halifax in like '95?
I mean, it's a popularity contest.
Yeah.
I mean, I won a couple times. Shane's won like 19 times. It's always nice to be recognized by the people you serve. I never hold those things too much in high regard, because I believe there's so many more unsung heroes in this business, and I think we can all agree nothing in this business is ever done alone. It takes a team of people, it takes mentors, it takes a lot of help. So it is great to be recognized always, but there has to and should come with a huge amount of humility as well, right?
So I want to jump ahead then to 2008, because I feel like that's kind of when things started to change. I think 2007 might have been the first year of Bowls Around the World, maybe 2008. And Cooper, you were in the global finals for Bowls Around the World 2008 with your True North Martini. Do you want to tell everyone what was in that?
Take notes.
Yeah. The True North Martini, so let me say this. It wasn't a great drink. But at the time, there was no understanding competition.
Yeah, within context,
within context,
yeah.
there's no. I had nothing. I had no one to guide me, right? Celinda, we all know Celinda. She's our champion. She's been champion cocktail culture in the city for a long time. She all deserves a hug from each and every one of you. But she came to me. She's like, "Let's do this." Now again, back that time, there was Bowls Banan, Bowls Amaretto, Bowls every color in the sun. We didn't have Geneva. We didn't have any of their products that the Europeans or U.S. markets had. So how do you make a balanced cocktail with only sweet liqueurs? And I wanted to make it local, so I used, at the time, this really crazy, dry, funky maple wine from Yost, and made it a wine-based cocktail. The one thing I did, which I think kind of got me at least some attention, was I made candied apple balls in real time as I made the drink. If there's anyone that's ever tried to make candy before, it'll burn a hole through your hand within seconds. If there's talk to your pastry chef at your restaurant. But essentially, I would ball out a Macintosh apple, dip it in 300-degree maple candy, and roll it in my hand as I was talking about the cocktail, skewer it before the candy hardened, and then put it in the cocktail. And that was like the wow factor. Taking ramekins of hard candy through an international arrivals lounge in Europe looks like heroin. Okay? Especially when you land in Amsterdam, which is where the final was. So I got stopped. That was tricky. But I learned more getting my ass handed to me in 3 days in Amsterdam than I learned in 10 years. And I always preface that when I talk to young bartenders is you never lose, you only learn. And that's how you should look at it. And you should kind of want to lose more than you win, because winning, you don't learn anything really. And you're gonna win comps, but you're gonna always lose more comps than you win, and you shouldn't get upset about it.
So going from the True North Martini into kind of, I think Jeff, you were at the Carlton at the time with the Kahlua competition.
Yeah.
Had you entered any competitions before? And where did this? I've never heard of a Kahlua competition before.
Yeah.
You made it out.
So I was same sort of deal. A rep came by the bar and dropped off some information about Kahlua competition, and it was a sort of thing where you give them a recipe and it just went online and on this website where anyone who's looking for a Kahlua cocktails, I guess, would go and check out this competition and then vote on their favorite drink. The Pina Kahlua was basically
That's amazing.
It's a good name.
was essentially coffee
yes.
flavored pina colada. It was pretty delicious, and it was like cream and pineapple and Kahlua and probably some simple syrup, and I don't even know if there's any actual fresh ingredients into it. So it went on to like a website, and I probably went on Facebook and was like, hey, I've got a cocktail. Can you vote? I think there was Facebook at that time. Vote for it and whatever. And you just go on the website and click a button. My grandmother voted for me, my aunt, and probably everyone else. Anyway, so I won this competition, and they gave me $1,000, which was...
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, sweet. I probably drank most of it. And that was it. That was kind of the end of it. I think Andrew Thompson was at the bitter end, and he entered the same competition as well.
You smashed him.
Yeah. Really. But at that time, like, even just being involved, I was like, okay, like, this is a cool opportunity. Maybe I should learn a little bit more about cocktails. Like, I won this competition. I need to be able to, at least be able to, put my money where my mouth is if someone else comes in and says, hey, can you make a couple other drinks for me, or that sort of thing. And that just piqued my curiosity about, getting into cocktails and the potential of, creating new things to draw interest to people coming into the bar.
Yeah. So I don't think Andrew Thompson's here right now, but he's
still asleep.
He's still asleep. Yeah. He has recently re-entered the bar industry and is at the exchange now. But other than Andrew Thompson, would there be anyone in the bar industry who's still in the bar industry now competing in that competition?
I remember looking and seeing the previous winner was at the Granville Room. Trevor, what's Trevor's last name?
Callies?
Oh, Trevor Caley's.
He was the year before winner
Kahlua?
of that competition. Yeah.
Snap.
National.
Just handing out $1,000 checks.
So I mean, like, I didn't know anyone else at the time. Like,
Okay.
that was pretty much it.
So I want to move on to then Made with Love. So as Jenner, you mentioned, they were kind of the first ones to come here with a real kind of direction. It's sometimes a controversial topic, but do you think that Made with Love kick-started or helped the cocktail culture in Halifax, or were we already on kind of the way without the platform of Made with Love?
I think it pushed it through the door.
Yeah.
Jeff and I think we had met maybe a half a dozen times before we walked in that room for the Made with Love trials.
I think that was the first
I think that might have been the first time. Jeff and I didn't know each other for a long time, and the only way we knew each other was because we competed against each other a lot, and we didn't really like each other for a while until we sat down. I was like, "What's your deal? What's your deal? Nothing. All right, let's be friends." There was nothing more than the fact that we competed against each other. So there was, and the city. I don't mean to blow it up, but everybody loved it because there was this fucking rivalry between Jeff and I.
remember it.
Who we didn't even fucking know each other. We didn't. I had no idea. And then we finally sat down and had a beer or something. And we're like, you're pretty cool. So are you. All right. Here's my number.
I once referred to both you and Jeff as Don the Beachcomber and Trader Vic.
Yeah. But it was like Jeff stayed down in Bishop's Landing and in that area, and I stayed up on Barrington Street, and we didn't really cross paths. So we walked into this room, first Made with Love, in Taboo during the day, which you don't want to go in there during the day. There was 7 people. 7. They needed 13 or 12. They had 12 brands, there were 7 people, and they were like, if anybody else is interested, they qualify. When now you guys are fighting it out just to qualify for Made with Love, we walked in the room and put our name on a piece of paper. And they, oh my God, I remember this. They were like, all right,
They
you got to
pulled that video, by the way. That
you got to
video's
make
not
your
online
you got to make your drink. You got to make your drink for the qualifiers, but you're not allowed to use any. There was some broken English there. You're not allowed to use any of the ingredients in the rail, is what we understood. So we weren't picking up any simple syrup, any sweeteners. So it was just these acid bombs. Everybody's cocktails were super out of balance.
It was a black box challenge, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We were also evaluating each other. So there's 3 bartenders that went, and then another 3 bartenders judged them, and then added up. It didn't make sense. Everyone made it through the final. It was all good. It was just interesting to have those people in the room, and at that time you see how different people have learned how to make drinks. No one's been properly taught. It's just kind of like, well, this is how I do it.
But just to add context, like, I've watched that video of like probably 1,000 times. When I first started bartending, I watched the Made with Love 2011 regionals at Taboo like at least 1,000 times.
To learn?
Yeah,
Explains a lot.
and I know, Jeff, you got it was a black box challenge, and you got oysters.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay.
But I think this was the third year that Made with Love was even happening, maybe.
Yep.
We were one of the furthest cities from Montreal that they went to in that first year. Well, it was like Vancouver was doing it, Toronto was doing it, Montreal, Quebec City, and then they went to Halifax. And once we qualified, I didn't have a full understanding of what was about to happen, and I don't know if Jeff did either, but they're like, all right, so we're gonna sell 350 tickets and you're gonna have to make cocktails for all of them. And all of us are just like, fuck, how the fuck am I gonna do this? Like, what do you mean 350 cocktails? I've never seen that many people, especially that were interested in drinks in one room at the same time. So this was just like a completely foreign language to all of us that were in there, when now they're packing I keep saying fuck. They're packing the hotel with 500 people for Made with Love, which is unreal. But we had no idea. I didn't have any idea anyway. Like, volume cocktails the first time in 2011.
Yeah, first one was 2011.
Yeah, so that was that.
That was. It's at the Halifax Club.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Regionals were at
For
Taboo.
the first 2 years.
Yeah.
Regionals were at Taboo, and then Halifax Club. Yeah.
And there was nobody at the regionals. It was just the 7 of us, PO, and maybe one other person. That was it.
Yeah.
And basically where you finished was who got to pick
And a
their brands
DJ.
first.
There's always a DJ.
Yeah.
Really important to the cocktail, the DJ.
So moving forward then, from 2011 into 2012 and 13, arguably probably generate your biggest year for competitions.
Can I just give a
Please
quick
interject.
pro tip on Made with Love for next year? Because Will knows it's about to happen. This won't be a rant, trust me. For people who are going to enter next year, enough with the food pairings. It's only hurting your score. It's one more category for you to lose points on. Okay? Yes, Will.
You were explaining to me that the way that the scoring works, if you don't have one, it's sort of like 45 or something. If
Right.
you have one, it's sort of 55.
Right.
So it's just like.
Yeah, so the judges do our scores on a percentage of total points. So if you have less points to calculate a percentage from, you're going to get a higher percentage, right? So if you've added another category of 10 possible points because you think you've got the best bruschetta in the room.
It's nice to have
Sorry.
bruschetta.
Oh, shit. I thought I loved bruschetta. And it's bruschetta.
Chances are you're not going to get 10 out of 10 on that.
Oh, man.
Because if you're 12th out of the 18th person, imagine what our palates are like as judges. They're toast. I'm only concerned about your cocktail. Made with Love wants you to make food for free so they don't have to supply food on their end.
This is going online.
Yeah. Legally, they have to supply food.
Before they had the food pairing, it was that they brought food in because to sample all
Caterers.
of them,
Yeah.
Correct. So you're doing their work for them and saving them thousands of dollars. And you're hurting your own score.
In your pocket.
In your own pocket, and you're probably annoying your chefs that are like, I don't want to make a fucking spring roll times 300. Right? So anyway, if you want to make a food pairing, go for it. But I would suggest you don't.
Moving on from Made with Love.
Moving on.
So Jenner, in 2013, yeah, you probably had your biggest year of competitions yet. I think first was Bowls Around the World Global Finals, where you went to Amsterdam and competed in the Global Finals. And then probably your largest win yet would be the inaugural World Class, or Diageo World Class Bartender of the Year, Canada. Where do you see world class in terms of the Halifax context of its position in pushing cocktail culture forward?
I'm going to rewind for 1 second and
Please.
tell you all that Jeff kicked my ass 2 years in a row at Made with Love. The first year we split. The second year he beat me in both categories. So that was huge. And going back to what Cooper was saying about going into competitions, if you've never failed, then it means you've never even tried. And when Jeff beat me both times, I was so mad but so psyched for him. And then it just like clicked this button in my head where I was like, I'm gonna fucking, I like stop going out, stop drinking. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I'm pent up today.
It's Sunday.
Yeah, and I studied and I learned and I practiced and there was no Amazon, there was no bartending books. I just like put myself in my room and I was like, that'll never happen again. Not that Jeff won't beat me because he has still, but I will not embarrass myself on that level ever again, ever. I will like force myself. So Appleton rolled around. I made the national final for that. Met Robin Goodfellow. That was super fun. Bowls around the world. I was drinking in a bar in Montreal and I got a text message saying that I made the national final. That was super cool. Got to go to Amsterdam and then World Class happened. And I think that I had an advantage because Jeff was there and some of the better bartenders in Canada were at the final for World Class. I had just come back from a global final, like Cooper said. I got my ass handed to me. I finished third in the cocktail presentation, which I thought was super cool to qualify for the top 8, but then the marketing pitch, I finished dead last. Dead fucking last. So I didn't make the top 8 for Bowls Around the World, and I was crushed, but I had just come back from that when I entered World Class, and I had an edge, I felt, because I had competed on a global scale, and I got embarrassed. I got my ass kicked by these guys who were like trained, professional bartenders, guys working at the Connaught. You ever heard of the Connaught? It's one of the top 5 bars in the world every year. That's the guy that won the competition, and he just like destroyed me. Yeah. Wayno Sun was one of my judges, if you've ever met him. Ago Peroni was one of my other judges. He's the bar manager at the Connaught. That was the first time I met Anastasia and Jared Miller, the guy who started Sipsmith. That guy, he was one of my judges. And his wife, they've written a handful of books. Like, going on these competitions and like putting yourself out there is the opportunity that it creates the opportunity to meet these people. And not to sidetrack too much, but the national judges for World Class were Ricky Gomez, Steve Olson, Tony Abuganim. So Steve Olson, became a very good friend of mine. He invited me to Oaxaca. I went to Tony Abuganim's house and stayed with him in Las Vegas for a few weeks. Like, it opened so many doors. And now I think you all in this room should be super proud that Nova Scotia had a higher representation the last 2 years in a row than Toronto on a national level at World Class.
It's pretty cool.
It's huge. And that speaks like volumes to the bartending culture that we've created in this city, all of you guys. It's all of you. It's not just the 4 of us were lucky enough to be in the right spot at the right time and like be motivated to continue pushing forward, but it's all of you.
Yeah, that's
Don't be fooled.
The point that I want to make. Like 2011 was when Made with Love started and came to Halifax, and you guys, it was 70 you in a room with no audience, and now we're, part of 25% of, 25% of the World Class regional finals. Yeah. With 2 people going to the national finals.
And the guidelines for getting to World Class in 2013 were to submit a video, and the judges were Angus Winchester and Simon Difford.
Sweet.
75 people entered, and they picked 12.
Yeah. So Shane, going from 2013 was the first World Class Canada. You've competed in the nationals twice. From what you know of 2013 to the 2 times you've competed in nationals, what do you see as kind of the major changes in cocktail culture in Halifax and the competitive nature and just the competition in general?
I mean, that's a big question. I'll try not to answer all of it. But I mean, World Class was just like one of many like competitions, right? And that was one to be honest, when I first got into bartending, I didn't even do a competition until I'd been bartending for almost a full year making cocktails, and I didn't even know the strength of them. But I actually had a conversation with Jenner. I think it was I almost want to say it was over the computer, but I don't think it would have been used in MSN
ICQ,
at that point.
maybe,
I don't know, but I remember that it wasn't quite a text, but we were talking, and I had asked you, and you said I have one piece of advice, right? And the piece of advice was just kind of like, if you want to grow as a bartender, you have 2 options. One is to find a good job working for a company or an individual that will support your quest for knowledge and offer you support. Or the other is to do competitions do well in them and get the opportunities to travel, meet people, and find opportunity for yourself. And so right from then, I thought that if I want to be a professional bartender, I had to consider my options. And you know, the first one was to do competitions. So obviously my first one was Made with Love, and that was a you know, that was an eye-opening experience to say the least, but it gave me this idea that I could do something, right? And then when the other ones came along, I mean, I'm sure we'll touch on it, but Bacardi Legacy in its inaugural year was one of the biggest ones, because that's one of the first times that I can recall a national brand ambassador leaving his like comfy suite in Toronto and traveling to the East Coast to like see our bartenders. Like, we had the national ambassador come and like drop off presents and knock on bars and say, I want you to do this. And it's like, that's when I first would consider Halifax to have steam. But that's also because when Jenner won the inaugural World Class and Jeff represented Nova Scotia too, there was like this buzz across the country that the East Coast had these like major bartenders, right? Yep. So when World Class came and I decided to enter it, my first year it was crazy, just because I just somehow got my way to Montreal and then got my way to Chicago, and that's when I met Cooper, and like I just blindly entered this competition, and the next thing you know, I am getting Dale DeGroff to drink a schooner. And it was incredible. At 11 a.m. he chugged a schooner with me, and that was like, until I die, it's one of the best experiences I'll ever have as a bartender. But I mean, that was like, World Class was morphed at that session, at that point, you know?
So I want to kind of touch on, you talked about meeting Cooper for the first time, and last session you mentioned as a dishwasher in the bitter end, you always saw Cooper with
hugging darts. No, he's hugging just these big hauls.
Cooper, what was the first meet like for you two? Cooper, did you know anything about Shane when you guys met at World Class?
Can I just like say right before Cooper starts this, it was amazing because it's like, I knew about Cooper and this kind of West Coast superstardom with the nice hair always slicked back, right? And it's like, I would see this guy in his like suit that I used to see him in, and it's just like his hair. It's just like he always just had it perfect, and he was like such a real, true, put together bartender, and I was like, this is amazing. So when this is a funny part, I just didn't even occur to me now. It's like basically my mom that helped me out here, because when I made the World Class Finals, it's kind of like, my mom's like, that's pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm going to Chicago. Like, there's 10 people from Canada that made it, and I'm one of them. And I'm going to, you know, I'm going to meet all these bartenders that came from all across North America. My mom's like, you should, like, tell someone about that. And I was just like, okay. And so I decided to, like, build up a bit of energy. I just, like, sent a letter into the Chronicle Herald, and I sent a letter into the Coast, and I just said, like, I'm going to represent Nova Scotia in this national competition, and like I think it's pretty interesting, and we're going to Chicago, and here's the rules. And they're like, this is amazing. So like everyone that I sent a letter to came back and was like, I want to interview you, we'll do these photos. And so I sat down with someone from the Coast, and when I sat down with the person from the Coast, I just told them this story about how I remember Cooper doing this thing, and now I feel that there's this cross-Canada connection, because this guy that started this like was a huge part of the scene in Halifax, now lives in Vancouver, and he qualified, and now I'm going, and we're going to meet in Chicago, and it just shows you like the growth of our community across Canada that started here in Halifax. And so the Coast was so taken by that story that they reached out to Cooper and they interviewed him. So before Cooper and I had ever even like exchanged a word together, we had this like massive article with both of our photos and this huge in-depth kind of conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And World Class is interesting because you don't represent your bar, you represent your region. And I fought really hard because the Chicago one was my second national final. And I wanted to be listed as representing Nova Scotia, but they wouldn't let me.
Didn't know that.
Because that was my bartending pedigree. I lived in Vancouver, but I was from Nova Scotia. And I just said, you know, how hard is it just to like write the text underneath, but they wouldn't do it.
We shook hands and hugged the first time we met, though.
We did.
That's good. So I think that just goes to show how far we've come.
But I was just going to say, in Vancouver, when the inaugural World Class started, Diageo was like the evil empire. And
the Death Star.
Death Star. And in many respects, it still is. Yeah. But everyone was anti that comp when it came out. No one from Vancouver entered. Grant was the only one that entered, essentially, and he made the final.
Yeah.
And because we didn't get it, no one from Diageo visited any bars in Vancouver because this stuff sells itself, so they didn't feel the need to come visit and say hi. It is good products. We were all about Beefeater and rums and cognacs and stuff like that. And then Grant, one of our local Vancouver guys who's from Australia, was another story. But he gets in it and he's like, yeah, there's like 5 comp challenges over 2 days. And we're like, is this like Ironman bartending? Like, what is this all about? None of us knew anything. And then it comes back that Jenner wins, and Jenner's from Halifax. So now I'm like, you know, oh, guy from Halifax won. What are you going to do next year? So then it became this thing of now I've got to do it.
Oh, shit.
Because he's now like raised the bar again. And then it just kind of blew up the next year.
Yeah.
But it took that first year.
I had no idea what I was in for. I had just come back from Bowls, and you know the budget when you look at Bowls as a company compared to Diageo as a whole is like a hot dog in a hallway. It's like, you know, the budget that Diageo had though, like, you know, so I go to Bowls. It's 3 challenges. There's a handful of bartenders from selected countries, and then I fly into Nice in France for the Diageo World Final, and spend the day in Monte Carlo, like hanging out and doing press interviews, and then they put us on a cruise ship. So there's 55 of us, and then like 800 spectators. So it was like immediately my pupils just like, you know, and I was alone. A lot of the other guys had support teams, trainers, ambassadors, their whole team. I was completely alone. The guy that was supposed to come, I'm not throwing him under the bus, but the guy who was supposed to come with me was originally from Venezuela. He found the Ranzacaba team and just pissed off. He just got wasted with them the whole time, and I never saw him once. So, it was, you know, and now when they go to the international finals, like Grant's year, I went with him. He finished 3rd. I went with him, and I was essentially his coach and his like support line, and we helped each other. And now when they go, the whole world-class team goes. So they all go. Caitlin won the other year, and they were all there except for me.
And that's how they won the global, because it's full team effort. Right?
Yeah. So like, Canada's one of the only countries right now that's accumulating these winners and bringing them on board for the year and for the global final, which is pretty cool. Huge. It speaks volumes about our bartending culture in Canada.
And I think the biggest part is, I don't want to stray too much, but it's about the education. And that's why, as a platform for bartenders, it's so important, and that's why competitions are so important. I'm sure we'll touch on it in a bit, because I've got a lot of mixed feelings about competitions and the way that they can influence you as a bartender. But the first time that you ever do something on that level, like the education that they offer, it's as much as you want to take. If you want to go on these trips and get drunk and then you know, sleep in and not take part, that's perfectly fine. But you're losing out on a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to meet the people that, you know, distill this alcohol, that blend it, that make it from scratch, and you get to go into tasting rooms, and it's full-on education. Like, it's an incredible opportunity to open your eyes to what's beyond you, right? And it's the educational platform that allowed them to grow so much. And I think that's what helped our community in Halifax so much, is it wasn't just like, I want to go up there and win and see what happens. It's, I'm going to accumulate this knowledge, bring it back to my community, become a better bartender, offer that experience to our guests and to the fellow bartenders in our city, and everybody grows from that.
Yeah. So going off that point, Jeff, where, like, competitions are arguably just marketing campaigns for large companies. They do put bartenders on, they do change bartenders' careers, but where do you see kind of, there's a fine line between helping and hurting the bartender? Like, for someone who's been in competitions since, you know, the early or late 2000s till I think your last competition was the Nationals at World Class, where do you see it helping and hurting the bartender?
Well, right now it's like, it's a different situation because it's oversaturated. So even mentioning the fact that Beefeater is not doing their national or their global competition is, I find that really interesting, because there's larger issues that should be approached and handled, and communities can be, you know, the number of dollars that they're spending on these, you know, global competitions is, it's incredible. Especially when, you know, you're looking at trends within bartending communities are sustainability. Like, if you, the number of air flights to, you know, get people to go to, you know, a global competition, if you're to eliminate that, save the money and put it back into the community, like, that's the sort of change that we would actually see.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
So I find that really interesting. I think it's a great opportunity for bartenders to, you know, challenge themselves. But, you know, if you want to be a good bartender, you should you shouldn't need a competition to challenge yourself to be a better better bartender. Like there's tons of opportunities and tons of things that you can do to do that without a competition. And the people that are going to do that on their own, that aren't necessarily going into it to get the fame or recognition or something that you get out of a bartending competition. You're quickly going to see that from the hospitality that you're delivering to your guests.
Yeah, so picking off of that, one of my favorite competitions, which would be kind of the socially conscious competitions, would be Speed Rack, which is, there are a great number of female bartenders in this room right now. That was set up, I think, in 2011 by Ivy Mix. And it's all towards breast cancer research and donations. And Anne-Marie, who's in the audience, and Morgan, where's she? And is Marika here too? No. But you guys have crushed and been to the national finals the last couple of years. Where do you guys see kind of like Anne-Marie, the national finals for Speed Rack in terms of competitions for the city?
For Halifax?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty cool. We obviously were included the first year. It was kind of a weird year. They were like doing a test run in Canada when they brought it here. So I will say it's pretty cool that it only took them a year to figure out, okay, like how do we bring this across the country? And a big shout out to Evelyn from Toronto, who like absolutely killed in like kind of wanting to spearhead the movement of Speed Rack in Canada. And they included Halifax pretty quickly, but at that point, I mean, this was only a couple years ago, so I think like we already had, at that point we were already a lot of ahead in recognition, and people realized there's something going on the East Coast. We still have to fight for a lot of competitions to come here and include us, but I will say Speed Rack was pretty quick on the ball for that. And I was super proud. Like the first year we had a lot of competitors, and we do tend to, like we got 2 people the first year to go. Me and Morgan both got to go, and I don't know if everyone knows, but essentially like depending on how many entries you have and contestants you have or competitors you have, based on like those numbers, they kind of decide how many bartenders from each city get to go. So originally we were only to have 1 because we're a small city. They didn't expect us to have that many women compete, and then we absolutely killed. Like we had so many people. They're like, oh shit, we got to give Halifax 2 spots. Like they had so many people turn out, which was really cool. And then the second year was like even more so. So they sent 3 of us, which is crazy. So that just shows that like even compared to like the big cities, we were like really representing in the competition, and especially like being women, like we get our own comp, but like it's cool because it was just like unexpected maybe. Like I know people, I think the female bartenders in Halifax are extremely underrated, and kind of like we're just kind of quietly
Well, females in Canada in general have been like Caitlin Stewart for World Class, Global Finals. Evelyn Chick, Global Final winner, or Caitlin Stewart, Global Final winner for World Class. Evelyn Chick, Global Final winner for Beefeater. Jess Milley, Global Final winner for Bowls Around the World. Also,
Everval.
Yes.
Like, she runs the best bar in the country right now.
Like, females in Canada are crushing it right now in competitions.
I think personally, I stand on the point of like, it's not like that's the secondary comment I would make about any of those people that have been mentioned, and including any guys. Like, it's not really about whether it's a woman or a man. It's like that person's killing it in their field regardless. Like they're absolutely representing and stuff. So I think it's cool to see that for sure. Like it was cool that all these women showed up, but I feel like, I don't know, it just kind of was a little bit of a wave, and I think people were like, oh snap. Like,
and Rachel did wicked at the Auchentoshan. So okay, any last thoughts for you guys kind of in competitions? Actually, no, I wanted to ask, Shane, go ahead. Actually.
No, I was just going to say, the biggest lesson that I have from competitions is like, again, the advice from Jenner that he gave me like probably closer to almost a decade ago was very important to take. And competitions can guide you, but the biggest thing that I kind of want to stress to anyone out there who does competitions, and certainly what I've picked up on, is that as a bartender, don't forget that you're a bartender. When you do these competitions, it's kind of it's a weird thing for me because as a bartender, your role in the service industry to offer hospitality is to kind of separate yourself from your ego. It's not about you, it's about what you can offer to your guests that come in to see you. And so you're creating this community and you're following it and you're there to guide people and help them and serve them. When you do competitions, it's the exact opposite. It's about your ego and your confidence as a bartender and your ability to go through and do this. And if you attach your ego to these competitions and you grow, you kind of lose that ability to understand why you even began bartending. And I think that the best bartenders, and this is something I say quite often, but you don't even have to make cocktails. There's people that have been bartending in the city for decades that don't even pick up a mixing tin or don't use fresh citrus, but they offer hospitality and host people in important ways. And they may have never even done competitions. They're there just for the fact that bartending is a trade and it's honorable and that's what they believe in.
The Donnies of Halifax.
Yeah, and so that's the point I guess I'm getting at is that don't forget why you want to bartend. And any competition you do, carry that forward with you because you want to take away something. Like Cooper says, almost everyone's going to lose. You will lose. So it's not about this win and your fragile ego and not making it. It's about the lessons you learn and how you can adapt and become better as a bartender, right?
Yep.
I think it's important to get out of Halifax every once in a while.
Yes.
I don't mean that in a cynical way, and I'm shitting on Halifax because here I am back in Halifax. But I think it's important to have perspective and also important to understand, like Shane and Jeff have said, what's going on outside of our bubble. There's so many cool things going on. There's so many talented bartenders and chefs that exist outside of where we live. And competitions are a way for somebody else to pay for your transportation or your way of getting somewhere.
Oh,
And there's-
education.
It's not make or break, you know?
There's also so many people that are working way harder than all of us combined.
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea. Like, you think that, you're working hard, but, chances are there's a dozen other people that are working double the amount of time that you're working, and, they're very successful. So, the amount of work that goes into, rising to the top of your profession is really hard to, it's a lot more than everyone thinks.
So that's a good segue into kind of my next large umbrella topic of social media.
Skip.
So it's, it pretty much, I don't think I can see a bartender in this room right now that doesn't have an Instagram account, who doesn't post on Instagram semi-regularly. And it seems like, in today's digital age, you kind of have to be on social media to be a relevant bartender. So Shane,
Yes, sir.
I looked this up. You're the leading Instagram profile with 294 followers above Jenner.
What? Competition?
If
Fuck,
there's no one
Kevin.
out there not following me, please help me up that. No.
And
Yeah.
you're also Jeff doesn't have Facebook anymore either. But
I deactivate it every 6 months.
you're only on Instagram. Where do you, Shane, view social media in the role of a bartender today?
Yeah,
And
Can
in a Halifax
just,
context.
inject the
Yes.
story that Shane told about his mom telling him that he needs to tell someone about what he's doing? That is social media, and the fact that what came from that, connecting these two, and just bringing to everyone's attention what was going on, that's what I think a positive thing of social media is, telling people what's going on, because that's why a lot of people go to social media. They want to know what's going on.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have a very funny story about how I created Shane the Bartender. But I think the most important thing I should say first is that I don't have Facebook and I didn't have social media. For a long time, I spent a good portion of my early 20s without a cell phone. I'm not someone that kind of likes to create false persona of myself, and I like to connect genuinely one-on-one, which is why I like being a bartender, because as a bartender, that's our main thing, is focusing on the individual, and that's what I love so much. So I don't like trying to filter myself through the social media stuff, and it makes me uncomfortable, and I don't really care about people's cat photos and stuff. So I just never used it. But when Bacardi Legacy first came to town, they held their thing here. Jeff swept all of the competition away. I snuck into the national finals as a wild card. Now, this is a big thing, too, to segue these two things. One, if you're doing competitions, read the rules. Read the rules. That's number one. I did not read the rules, and I got this free trip to Toronto. It was Toronto Fashion Week. We were at the Thompson Hotel. There was fashion model parties and all kinds of stuff, and I was just hanging out, and I went into the competition. It was at this, like, Spanish castle. There was, like, 500 people. We were on this giant stage, and anyway, right before I went up, the judges came up to me, and they're like, what did you do for your social media platform? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they were like, well, part of the competition is that you had to represent your drink online, do all stuff. And I was like, I don't even have social media. I don't have Instagram, I don't have Facebook, I don't have anything. They're like, oh, okay. And it was like this very awkward moment where the judges looked at me and they were like, you are an idiot. So anyway, I did the competition and I had a great presentation and it was a lot of fun. And then afterwards I was at my friend's house and it was like the next morning and obviously didn't win. And I was like, hung over on the couch and I was just laying there and I was like, I cannot believe that I didn't read the rules. I can't believe that I don't even have social media. And I realized at that moment that if I wanted to further myself as a bartender and if I wanted to further my career and reach the potential or the opportunities that can come to you, you had to have an avenue for people to connect with. So I went on Instagram and I just typed in Shane the Bartender and it was available. And that was it. Evan, don't do anything embarrassing, please. But but that was it. And so I just created it, and I said to myself, it's only for professional use, and I'll use it that way. I don't like to put too much of my personal life or filter too much outside of that. It's mostly just observations and posts about the bartending world, and yeah.
This is strictly just incongruent with what you just said. Your caption for your first Instagram post is, welcome myself to Instagram with a goodbye to Toronto and the Bacardi Legacy Finals. Had an incredible time with some incredible people, thanks to everyone I met. So that's exactly what you just said.
But yeah, I entered it just to say that's it. And the opportunities that have come to me have been awesome just through doing it. But again, it is kind of like a weird world because social media can affect your psyche in so many ways. And I don't want to get into like some kind of psychological psychoanalyst stuff. But it's like you shouldn't compare yourself to others. You shouldn't see like, again, the whole thing is like Instagram is just like everyone's gold medal life. And it's just like, it's the good photos, not when they're down or upset. And it's the stuff that like can make you feel whatever, less than yourself sometimes. And for me, it's like I use it, but at the same time, I understand kind of the good and the bad that can come from it, and I don't think that you should use it to promote yourself in a way that you're not comfortable with, but use it as a powerful tool because there's opportunities that come from it. Yeah.
So going back to 1996 at the Thirsty Duck, from there, no social media, internet is in its infancy.
Thank you.
We just got telephones.
Yeah. How did you interact and put yourself on a platform as a bartender in Halifax in 1996?
You went up to a bar and you went, hi, I'm Cooper.
Weird. Oh man.
It's true.
You left huge tips.
You had to
wave your money around. You'd be like, I'm a bartender. Here's $20. Give me a vodka soda. That guy's awesome.
It was interesting. I mean, back then
Cooper never did that.
There were a lot fewer bars, and they were mostly all pubs. And like the pub guys hang with the pub guys, and the nightclub guys hung out with the nightclub guys, and that was kind of it. That was the turf war. But yeah, I mean, that was the thing. You met someone face to face. You knew someone because you knew them. You didn't like them,
yeah.
You know?
Or poke them.
Or poke them, or whatever.
DM them.
I mean, I wish Steve Cross was here because he's older than me and he'd have better perspective.
You don't want to be the oldest in the room.
I don't want to be the oldest in the room. But I think that going back to what Shane said about being a bartender and hospitality and choosing competitions for the right things kind of goes back to that is of some of the best bartenders in the city have never picked up a shaking tin. Yeah. As a judge, I can tell within about 10 seconds whether you love being a bartender or whether you love being in competitions. And there's a very distinct difference. And it's written all over your face. Yeah. You're not going to fool a judge. There's a very, we as good bartenders smell bullshit a mile away. The judges are generally older, somewhat more experienced bartenders, can smell bullshit even further away. So back in the 90s, you had to be real with someone. You couldn't be an Instagram persona and then be someone else in real life, right?
Yep.
I mean, I've met tons of people who have said, "Oh, I've been following you on Instagram, but I've no idea who this person is," but they feel like they know me,
Yep.
which is super creepy. But at the same time, in this day and age, it can also be very helpful. So it's a very slippery slope. I'm old enough and I don't know if this is dating myself in a negative way or not, but I don't think I've ever needed social media in the same sense. On my Instagram, there's nothing about cocktails. There's very little about cocktails because I don't feel that defines who I am. So if you're going to follow my account, it's me. It's not just bartending. So it's a tough one. I mean, you know, Jenner, these three guys are a little bit better at speaking at it than I am because Jenner's running a business, as is Jeff, which requires a certain level of social media presence. And I'm just going to come up and talk to you whether I want to, and if I don't want to, then I won't.
Yeah. So I want to touch on, like, Facebook. I think 2000. Facebook and YouTube kind of came about at the same time. I don't know if anyone's ever YouTube.
Don't do this.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Whatever. I'm proud of it.
Jenner, you're on YouTube a bit.
That's a big stream.
Yeah, I almost thought about doing it. YouTube, when kind of cocktails started to become a thing, everyone seemed to create YouTube channels and about the how to make cocktails, and you've done a few of them. At that time, in kind of, you're the only Halifax bartender I know that in the late 2000s, early 2010s, were you kind of like putting on YouTube how to make. Will, go ahead.
Cooper's got some.
Oh, actually, Cooper does have some. The Truno with
I
martinis
was going
on
through my
there.
head, I'm like, he hasn't mentioned mine.
Oh shit.
Thank you, Will.
Thanks, Will.
So, in the late 2000s, you know, putting those videos online, what were you thinking?
Ouch. Oh God, I wasn't clearly. Yeah. I feel like all four of us have some pretty embarrassing social media content out there somewhere. Those first few that I did, I had some people approach me asking if I'd be interested in doing it, and I had never done it before. I'm comfortable in front of cameras. I was like, fuck, why not? I don't know what YouTube is. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the outreach, and I didn't understand that like once it goes up, it's up. You can't like.
You can take it down.
Well, I don't have the contact for some of these people anymore. So I didn't really think much of it. I didn't have Instagram at the time. I had no idea. I was like, whatever, we'll just make a cocktail and we'll throw on this YouTube thing and forget about it. And then I get messages from Will at like 4 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday being like, dude, I'm watching your YouTube videos. Fuck, man. I don't know. I had no preconception of what the internet and social media was about to evolve into, and if I had I might have thought twice about it. But in retrospect, I don't regret it. It's just out there, and it's funny now.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
How often do you still make your toast foam?
Dude, at least once a month.
For
I
context,
don't think anybody has any idea what you're talking about.
Appleton Estate competition in 2012.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be honest, though, it was amazing because when I saw those videos from the day one, and when Jenner went down to work at the Middle Spoon, it was this big moment because he was just this like flashy bartender with this beautiful bar, and there was like a unicorn, it was marble or something. It's like amazing, and the bar is beautiful, and he used it as a backdrop. To be honest, too, those YouTube videos that I saw inspired me, and you get looking on them, right?
Yeah.
The Chris McMillan ones that he used to do at the Library Bar in New Orleans were some of the most inspiring things I had ever seen. Yeah. And then when I saw the videos that Cooper and Jenner had done, it's like these guys in my own city are doing these just as good as almost anyone is, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to cut you off. I'm sorry. The reason why I had found out about YouTube originally was funny videos with my friends, but after that it was because there was a few bartenders on there that had posted videos, and that's how I learned. Before you could get out of here, I'm not going to walk down to the Bicycle Leaf and talk to Jeff because we hated each other, quote unquote. But I would jump on YouTube and I would look up Eben Freeman, Toby Maloney, Chris McMillan, Graham Warner. Like, these are all bartenders that I looked up to, that I learned from. The first time I met Graham Warner at Made with Love, I walked up to him like a fucking white boy band fan, and I was like, I watch your YouTube videos, and and he was like, do you want a beer or not, man? Like, but I had walked up to this guy, never having met him. He probably thought I was a total creep. And since then, Graham and I have become friends. He owns Mal Necessaire in Montreal, but like, he taught me how to bartend. You watch, he has amazing style because he was a volume bartender and a flair guy. And like, Toby Maloney, you guys ever heard of the Violet Hour in Chicago? That guy's he's a legend. Eben Freeman, same thing. Like, Jeffrey Morgenthaler.
Morgenthaler's videos are
Jamie Boudreau, who owns Canon. Like, all these guys have YouTube videos out there.
Robert
Hayes.
Yeah. 2011, 2012 was the year of like
Eric Lorenz, like then that's how I stumbled into the hole and found out about World Class, because it went from like Eric Lorenz to Ricky Gomez to World Class, and Ricky Gomez had just won World Class, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
So
why are they in Brazil? And that's how it all kind of like, that was the tipping point.
So as accreditation to your YouTube videos, like, and same thing for me. When I started bartending in 2000. I'd been in a bar since 2009, 10. But when I started watching your videos and just things like that, they blew my mind. And watching you make a Manhattan.
Did my videos not blow your mind?
The True North Martini blew my mind.
Genuinely offended.
I just think the progression of the internet is super cool.
It's terrifying. And now I have a note here. I don't want to dive too deep into it psychologically, but now that, like, because cocktails are becoming trendy and we're going through a gin renaissance, which I still think is funny because I never think gin went away. Trendy mixology food stylist accounts drive me nuts. And it's like, Shane said this to me the other day, real recognizes real. You can put a pig in a prom dress, but it's still like, I know that's a horrible analogy, but you can still see through that these people have never worked a Friday night during Christmas holidays, like, I don't know. Real recognizes real, and I stand by it. Don't get too caught up. Nas has a wicked quote, which I'm going to quote Nas, he was on earlier, perfect your art and your reputation will follow. And that's like, fuck, yeah, boom, fuck anybody else. Like, But I don't know. It's tough. It's a weird world out there, and it is a slippery slope.
So
I think he had a point.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if we're going to jump off this or not, but I had a note here, and it just kind of reminded me to bring it up because we're kind of in that zone of Instagram and Facebook. Because there's definitely there's some different views on how it can be used and how it should be used. So I was one of the managers of one of the largest operations in the country. And the first thing we did when we got anyone's resume was we checked their Instagram and Facebook. And it doesn't matter if you don't think that's right or if it's fair, but if you look like an asshole on Instagram, we weren't going to hire you.
We still do that.
No matter how good you are, no matter how bad we need someone, no matter how polished your resume is, if your Instagram or Facebook's full of, I'm getting wasted, I'm a dick, whatever, that's it. And we've told people, and we've like shown people, like, this is your Instagram. You're not an adult. We hire adults. So, if you have questionable content on your Instagram and you're getting a new job, figure it out, right? Because it's almost common practice in large scale and small scale operations.
Yeah.
And I've had people complain, like, that's my private life and you have no right and blah, blah, blah. And it's like,
make it
I'm
private.
gonna say,
online.
Yeah, make it private. Or
Keys.
be private, but if we're gonna pay you a lot of money to represent us, then you need to represent yourself accordingly.
I think Keys has a question.
How far do you guys go down
The whole everything, all of it, all of it.
Busy thumbs.
All of it.
Good question.
Jameson
To kind of like, I think cap off.
Evan knows how deep I go.
Yeah, I like maybe every 6 months I get comments on photos that are like 4 years old from Shane. He just every so often goes through my Instagram all the way through. To kind of cap off, this last like 15 minutes has been kind of a downer on social media. I don't think it's quite that way because social media it connects all of us, and it's a way like I want to shine on like Lindsay Jones for a minute. Lindsay uses social media really well and Instagram really well, and it's a way to kind of like Lindsay brings. Arguably, I think Lindsay in this room brings together bartenders more than anyone here.
She's got Thomas right now.
Yeah, Thomas. I didn't say this at the beginning. Thomas is actually Thomas Yo is in Montreal right now. He moved recently.
He's in the bathroom.
Yeah. he wanted to be here so bad after he moved from Montreal. He's literally just
Skype.
watching on Skype right now.
In Skype-tion.
And Lindsay set that up.
Exactly.
So I think I just think Lindsay does a really good job of bringing bartenders together, and social media is a great way to let people know what you're doing, and it's a way of communicating. Sarah.
I was just going to say, I think that what Lindsay does best, which makes her stand out on social media, is shows a lot of gratitude.
Yes.
And I think like her humility comes through in all of her posts, and she tags everyone. And instead of being like, she doesn't lead with like, because she could lead with I won quite often, but she doesn't. She leads with like, thank you to this person and this person and this person for bringing us all together. I am humbled that I placed, whatever on the podium. And I think that that's like, we could all take a lesson in positivity from them.
Yeah, agreed.
Amen.
Does anyone have any final thoughts on social media?
It's a useful tool.
Yeah, it's free marketing.
Yeah.
Emery first.
Just a couple notes to Shane, because when you were talking about your social media, I just think every time I see your social media posts, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, man, Shane's one of the only guys who can just go ahead and just post this like novel like you write a lot, which by the way, no, like I think is amazing because not a lot of people do that on social media because they're scared, oh, people aren't gonna read it. It's like, people, you overthink like all that stuff because that's kind of how social media is geared, and people like holding people's attention for that long is very difficult.
Shane's kind of an anomaly where he.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He is. You're an anomaly. I think you're like one of the few people who could post that long of a post, and I guarantee you, like a very high percentage of people who read and like your post read it and read it all the way through. Like you're very.
I always read Shane's
Yeah.
posts.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that. And for someone who doesn't share too much of your like personal life, like you were saying, you don't like to get too personal about or sharing your personal life, but you're very personable. So like I just think that's really cool. And I just want to make a point that
Yeah.
I really appreciate your social media.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's really
I
cool.
agree.
And
Frequency is usually like the key to high follower content interaction and stuff. But Shane, I think it's like semi-infrequent that you post, but yeah, they're long posts, they're thoughtful posts.
I just
and
want to shove your Instagram in everyone's face, the people who are like, let me teach you how to use social media properly.
Yeah.
And get all the followers. And, like,
Yeah.
you have all that, like, that's what's
Shane's
happening
killing
on
me.
social
Well, you
media
just
right
have to
now.
be,
It's process.
you just have to be genuine.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I could just connect this to
Yeah.
what the kind of raw energy of a bartender is, it's your ability to connect with someone. When someone sits down at your bar right away, you have a second to understand them and to be able to find a way to connect with them. And on social media, you're connecting with much larger people without being able to do it personably, and so you have to find a way. And I think just being genuine and understanding who you are and being honest about your expectations of yourself and the individual that you're trying to reach, that's how you do it, right?
Yeah,
That's
agreed.
the biggest part of it.
Griffin, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one aspect of Instagram that I really appreciate is that it's a visual medium, right? And you see all these people taking like landscape shots, or Nova Scotia, they go for a beautiful hike and take a picture of the coastline. Cocktails are beautiful as well.
Yeah,
right?
you've been really doing a really good job lately.
It's just something like I'm not a professional photographer by any stretch. Shout out portrait mode on the iPhone, right?
I'm just discovering that.
But just if
Life
you can,
changer.
like, make a really kind of just like captivating cocktail and be able to take a picture that really does it justice. Like, I think that's just nice. Like scrolling through your feed to see
Yeah.
a really beautiful picture.
Agreed.
Like that. I think that's
Agreed.
really cool.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, back to the YouTube thing.
Seriously?
I
Give it up.
mean, before I knew YouTube guys, I watched everything that you had on YouTube, and I was fucking terrified to read Jared the first time. And he came up to me, he's like, I was working the brass meeting, he came up to me with like a bag of Olins. He's like, "Well, leave these here, will you drink them?" And I was like, yeah. But my main thought was, everybody should go watch Cooper's YouTube videos.
Yeah. Cooper's hair in those videos is amazing.
That's the main
Yeah.
part.
Yeah. Cool. So I want to kind of jump now. Again, I want this all to kind of be in relative to Halifax. I want to jump to jobs outside of just bartending.
Oh, right over health.
I want to do that last.
86 and 0.
All right.
Last.
Jesus.
All right, no bad.
So I'll start with you, Jenner.
I gotta pee.
Well, you can go.
I'm just kidding. I do. I will in a sec. I'm like an 80-year-old man.
In terms of jobs outside of just being behind the bar night after night, you stepped outside of the box and decided to own a place. So where do you see that kind of like in terms of like going from, you know, a bartender to even some brand work to more bartending to owning in Halifax? Why did you see owning in Halifax as a good opportunity?
The real estate market here is just great.
Next question.
Done.
Yeah, I took a break from bartending when I didn't really understand. I don't think Diageo knew what was going on. Not to backtrack a bit, and I don't think I knew what was going on after World Class. They were like, move to Toronto. You're gonna work for the brand, and we'll send you places to talk about the competition. I was like, cool, let's do it. So I kind of did some brand stuff for a year. I ended up hating it, but that's not true. I'd say it was about 50-50. I spent 3 weeks in a calendar year at home. That was crazy. I was everywhere that year, and that really messed with my like mental and physical health. And after that, I kind of called it quits with the brand thing. It's a lot of puppet work. It is very good work because you meet a lot of people and travel up, but there's a lot that you do that you don't want to do. You don't want to be an image. Personally, I didn't want to. A lot of people strive in that scenario, but I was like, this is not for me. So I quit and worked at Raval and then moved back here because I wanted to slow down, and I didn't want to work for anybody any longer. I didn't want to work for someone else. I think that was kind of like the I wanted to create something in Halifax where I could help people learn and work in somewhere that they wanted to work in. I think when Annie and I were trying to choose where to move after Toronto, it was Halifax and Montreal, and we flipped a coin.
Which is where she's from, right?
Which is where she's from. There's a lot of mob ties in Montreal. Real estate's a lot more expensive. Contracting work happens slower. And so we kind of picked Halifax instead. The reason why, mostly, I think, is because it's a growing scene. I don't remember who I was talking to yesterday, Babs maybe. We're kind of hitting a critical point right now in Halifax where things are about to go even further, in my opinion, and more people are going to continue to move back and migrate back to Halifax. I think I can say that comfortably, that we're hitting this amazing point because of the field guides and Edna and Highwayman and Stillwell and Lot 6 and The Watch and Spoon and like all these people and all. No, I'm not like excluding anybody on purpose, but all this energy is kind of growing. We're getting to this amazing point, and I think we wanted to take advantage of that.
And as Shane said, the real estate market too. Yeah. People are tired of paying $1 million for 500 square feet.
Yeah.
I met a guy, just to insert real quick, I met a guy this week who works in New York City but lives here. Because it's cheaper to commute to New York City than it is to pay Manhattan rent. And it's totally true. If you do the math, check out the flights, do the math, it works. Like go to New York 3 times a month, go balls out, work your work week, but then you pay Halifax rent. Yeah. And I was like, really? Yeah, he lives in Brooklyn. So.
Well, even comparative to Vancouver or Toronto, the rent that we were paying in Toronto, we were living on the corner of Queen and Bathurst, paying $900, and I had a loft apartment that was probably a quarter of this room, and we had the cheapest rent amongst anybody that I knew in Toronto because we had grandfathered through 5 different tenants to get that apartment, and so they couldn't change the rent because we were 5 down a sublet deep, and then when we moved here, we paid pretty reasonable price, and we have like 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, a backyard, like huge place. But cost of living here is a lot cheaper. Definitely. And the opportunity was there. I think that's kind of the two. Yeah. And the ocean.
Yeah. So remaining in the Halifax context again, Jeff, I think it's 2 years now. You and Matt have been running Clever Barkeep. So you decided to open kind of a consultancy business. For those who don't know, Jeff runs a business called the Clever Barkeep. It's consultancy and kind of event bartending.
It's gonna make a lot of noise.
Why did you feel like it was the right time to? Why did you feel like it was the right time to open that kind of business in Halifax?
Well, I mean, I had worked for many different people and always realized that I wanted to work for myself and be my own boss. And, you know, everyone, like, if you're really passionate about bartending, has that dream one day of opening their own bar and that sort of thing, which I think is a great dream for everyone. But, you know, if everyone in this room wanted to open a bar, like, we all can't just open a bar. And be successful. So the idea kind of came out of what I was doing currently. Always doing events, like was always getting hit up by different brands to do events, and then also the same time, like always like having someone approach me, say, hey, you know, we need some work on a cocktail program. Would you like to offer some cocktails that complement our brand and stuff like that? And I was like, okay, I think I know enough people, and I think there's enough opportunity to kind of start making this, or try to make this a living, instead of you know, opening a brick and mortar and having to pay rent and having this crazy overhead that is involved with owning an establishment. So that's kind of like how I kind of realized that, okay, I can continue to do this, work for myself, represent like my values, which are, you know, pushing the bartending community, educating people, sharing my knowledge and my passion with people, and then still like, you know, be my own boss at the end of the day. You know, with that, you know, operating any business, there's a huge, you know, learning curve, and there's so much still to be learned on how our business can be more successful. But for me, that's like, whenever I started a new path in my career, it was always out of, okay, this is a new challenge. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to grow as a person, grow as a bartender, and, you know, continue to progress on my track. And I mean, sometimes it's, you never know where you're going to go, but, you know, it's, you know, if you're going into something, accepting the challenge and looking forward to what's next, it's always going to be a good thing.
Right. So Cooper, I hate to keep saying 1996.
It's a big year.
But
Donovan Bailey.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Braves win the World Series that year?
Buffalo.
1996.
Barcelona.
Would a Clever Barkeep style consultancy event bartending company been a thought in Halifax at that time?
Well, there were no cocktails,
Right.
so there'd be no necessity for a cocktail consulting company.
I mean, you just need someone to end of that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just want to say,
Next.
it's just the point of like the Clever Barkeep. It was, to me, it was like an incredibly brave decision and move to make. Because if you travel to other major cities in Canada, like Jenna was saying earlier, it's important for you to get outside of this bubble. You see how other cities operate. Go to Montreal and see how there's people that they just make ice and they just like sell ice to bars, right? Go see like the juice programs where you just pay for someone to drop off fresh juice to your bar. And there's like so many of these like big cities that operate that have all these kind of like micro businesses that offer these services. Nothing like that was in Halifax, right? Everyone did everything themselves. And so when Clever Barkeep started out, it was one of the first times that you had someone that was standing up saying that, like, we can offer services to individuals, to businesses, to bar owners, to everyone, right? And that was a turning point for sure in Halifax, when it showed you the growth of the scene. And Jeff, who had always kind of been leading it, to take that next step and to offer that was something that the city certainly needed. By the success of the business, it showed you how the city needed it. But it also just showed you, as an entrepreneur and as a bartender, you can think outside the bar for success in the industry.
Yeah. So
And all the credit to Jeff for hustling his ass off.
Yeah.
For
And Matt Boyle.
making all the connections, and Matt Boyle making all the connections and following up on it, and like to watch these guys work, it's magic, you know. It's cool.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's still like the alcohol industry. Like, we're all in the sale of alcohol. There's you don't just have to stand behind a bar to, profit and make a living off of it. There's so many different opportunities, and the biggest challenge that we have is stay focused on what we decided to do instead of being okay, we're going to start making ice, or we're going to supply fresh juice to all the bars in downtown Halifax, which I'm sure you could probably make a living off of, but to focus on that one thing that we decided to do, that's the challenge for my mind, because there's always other opportunities always look really enticing in the beginning, but to distract yourself from your original plan is just going to take your focus off that, and to be successful you just have to be patient and focused on that one thing that you decide to do.
So going off of that, Cooper, when you moved back here last year, again with your Monday school and comp school.
Comp school tomorrow, 2 o'clock.
That's right.
Port.
I think what you're doing with spirit education and competition education is huge, and for the Halifax bartender, kind of coaching people through competitions and stuff like that, it's only going to improve our community more. What's your kind of drive through the Halifax community to do that?
When I first moved back, I was bombarded in a good way to judge everything and to be a part of everything, and I welcomed it all. And the one thing I noticed immediately, which was my problem when I was coming up in '96,
good year,
was
great year.
There was a massive amount of raw talent in the city, but a great lack of mentorship and direction. That everyone was really energetic and full of skill. And you could tell the YouTube bartenders from the book bartenders, but they were all managing their own programs without any leaders. And so I thought, not to mention another brand, but this other brand's person came to me, offered me a completely different job, and I said, no, you guys don't need that. And I'm not your guy for that, but what you do need is an education ambassador. So what Monday School and Comp School came after is providing mentorship within a space that you feel comfortable to fail and to ask questions and to be wrong. And I'm just there to curate and to guide, really. And then the Comp School part of it came from kind of what Anne-Marie was touching on, is there aren't enough competitions coming to Halifax, but there are more and more. And coming from the Vancouver market, where there's half a dozen competitions a month, all those people, all those bartenders are super polished and they're ready. I mean, Chris Enns, if there's a competition in 2018, Chris Enns won it.
Yeah.
Right? Because once you're in that mode, you stay locked in. And we have Made with Love, and then 3 months later we have another one, then we have another one, and then when the competition season's over, we're never really getting that groove. So my whole thing was provide a space that we can all compete to each other, which is far more terrifying than a bunch of strangers, I think, and sharpen those skills. And I, for one, and I think anyone who's been at Comp School would agree, have noticed a massive amount of improvement. That young, handsome fellow over there behind the bar,
Mr. Keys.
Well, Ilya's
Not here.
no.
And Ilya.
Ilya's a great bartender. But Nugget Keys has gone
Instagram
from,
Nugget Keys.
gone from a guy where I don't know if I want to drink this drink to put drinks on the menu. And I think a small part of that's due to Comp School. So
Yeah.
it's just, like Jenner said, real recognizes real. Jeff has true hospitality in his soul, and he found a way to execute that outside the bar.
Yeah.
I have true hospitality in my soul, and it doesn't have to come from behind a bar. It can come from a boardroom and teaching and mentoring. And yeah, I mean.
So where I want to go from that then is, if you don't mind, is kind of how
go.
Halifax has grown now where there are jobs in the bar industry, just outside of bartending. Jeff's running a consultancy business. Jenner owns a bar. Cooper is running education programs. And then Shane, another big part of this whole growing social media and everything is just writing. Shane is writing, I don't know how often, Curated comes out 3-4 months. It's a quarterly.
Yeah, they do about 5 to 6 issues a year. But.
Yeah, so Shane is, I don't know if anyone knows, but Shane writes an article each time Curated comes out.
I have read them.
Which are always super educational. Everyone should read them. But where I'm getting at is there's just so many avenues you can go down. If you're burning out, if being behind the bar isn't for you every single night, but you still love this industry, there are so many avenues that are available to us at this day and age, which I just find incredible. Does anyone have any questions about that or comments before I move on?
I think you're forgetting about yourself, Evan, and how you've taken from being behind the bar to what you're passionate about, which is alcohol in itself. And
I like alcohol.
and now that's what you worked really hard to bring some pretty unique brands to the city. And I think that Evan and I had a staff one-on-one, and what was the number one thing I told you guys to do?
Self-confidence. You know what Jenner's told me every time I'm about to compete? Smile.
You don't smile enough.
It's this.
You have a beautiful smile.
But Evan's role is big, and people also too, like Chris Thibodeau, who's here today as well. It's pretty amazing to see these guys step into these roles where they're ambassadors and they're doing things like that. And it's pretty amazing when you work with people for years and years and you see their growth and their evolution, and it kind of inspires you, right? I mean, Evan's kind of a little humble over there, mumbling in his microphone. But if you were to say his official role, he is the territory manager of Sovereign Wine and Spirits for Atlantic Canada. And so some of the kind of finest products that are brought into Canada, Evan's responsible for distributing among the Atlantic Canadian provinces, right? So that's a pretty big role that you stepped into, all because that's what you wanted and you found it, right?
I'm learning.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll step off of that then.
You don't want to talk about yourself?
Yeah, what did we just talk about?
I don't want to talk about myself. So brand ambassadors are local brand ambassadors, and sales reps are starting to become more and more prevalent here, but they weren't in even the late 2000s, 2013.
Don't say 96 again.
I'm not ever going to say that word again. I said 96 5 times, and I said that enough. So people like Donnie Wheeler and Dave Mitten, they come through here, and they've been a huge influence for me. I assume all 4 of you guys as well. Where did you guys see, when you guys were kind of starting, the role of these brand ambassadors and what they were doing for bartending? Jenner.
Can I start?
Yeah.
I know for me the goal was always like, all right, I'm gonna bartend for 10 years and I'm gonna be a brand ambassador. Like that was like the golden nugget in a lot of ways.
I think that's a lot of people.
But it's like, all right, you get the expense account, you get to travel, you get to hang out with bartenders all day. We're the best people. Like, why the hell wouldn't I want to do that? I think Thibodeau is probably one of the few, if only, along with yourself and a very few other people that are based in Halifax as brand ambassadors full time. Like that doesn't happen here. But you go to a big city like Toronto or Montreal, or even into the States in Chicago, they divide Chicago into thirds or quarters. So if you're a brand ambassador from McAllen in Chicago, you only do one neighborhood. Like that's it, because the city's so big and there's so many people and so many accounts that like that's all you're focusing on is like Chicago East. Boom, that's it. Don't even fucking come in my territory. But it's amazing to see more and more people. And last year, like Dave Mitten was through more than he's been amazing. He's come through a handful of times, but to see more and more brand ambassadors get this way has been it's a testament to what you are all doing as professionals in this industry, because all of a sudden all of these guys who work for these big companies are like, do you guys hear what's going on in Halifax? Like that's what people are saying verbatim. Do you hear what's going on in Halifax? Like that was never a thing. It was never a thing.
Not to be too grandiose, but when Jenner moved back from Toronto, excuse me, And then I made the decision to move back. Brand ambassadors and reps all over Vancouver were like, why? Like, what's the attraction? Why are you guys moving back to a city that no one goes to? and then the spotlight, you know, even focuses sharper. And for Thibodeau and Evan, the best trend I've seen is bartenders becoming ambassadors and reps. Because you ever met a brand rep who's never been a bartender? It's fucking hilarious.
Oh man.
Ask them a question and watch them panic. And that's the real recognizes real. It's like, if you're gonna come and sell me something, first of all, you can't sell it to me, but know it inside and out. And Thibodeau's come up to me like, I don't really like this whiskey, but what do you think of it? You know, he's real about it. And I appreciate that, because I'm not gonna hawk something for him just because he's my friend. I'm gonna do it because I believe in the actual liquid. And same with all of your products, right? And that's the best transition I've seen since '96 is, you know, micro rant.
Please.
We all know Jib.
Oh man, oh no.
Jib rant.
Love Jib.
Jib rant. Warning. So before Jib was a Bacardi, before Jib worked for NSLC, he was a Bacardi rep. Before he was a Bacardi rep, guess what he sold?
Car tires.
De Maurier cigarettes. Jib's a salesman. Jib will be a salesman if Nike paid him more to sell sneakers tomorrow, he would go sell sneakers tomorrow. He has no passion for this industry. He doesn't. I've told him that. He knows how I feel about him. But real recognizes real. Chris has passion for great spirits. Evan has passion for great spirits. They will not take a larger check to move out of this industry because they believe in this industry. That's the real recognizes real. That's the transition I've seen. Dave Midden, Donnie Wheeler. Can anyone imagine anyone else but Donnie Wheeler selling rum?
No.
I can't. But yeah, but I mean that's a whole other thing.
So,
but you know what I mean, right?
Just as anecdotal, then, as everyone keeps mentioning me and Chris and I are getting together on Tuesday to discuss what the hell we're doing in this city.
Yeah. Are you going to be here and then we can be out there?
Sure.
Okay.
I think, and on the other end of the spectrum, I think there's something to be said to touch on Cooper's point. When you have people that have not worked in the industry try and pitch you products across the bar at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, and you ask them one question about what type of oak or barrels that they're aging their aged gin in, and they can't answer your question, but they still force a business card on you backhanded with 2 fingers and like, carry my product. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. Don't disrespect us like that. Like, come on.
If anyone comes in trying to sell you gin, their latest, greatest gin, just say, do you think it's better than Beefeater and a martini? And that's what you're here. You're here fucking silence. Because that's the thing. It's like, have you created a great gin or have you created like Hendrix 2.0? Anyway.
So
sorry.
Now I want to jump in. We're kind of our last topic of the afternoon is kind of, we're all excited about this industry. This industry is growing in Halifax. How do we maintain it? And to focus first on just bartending, I want to focus on kind of like longevity in the industry. And how do you maintain mental and physical health behind the bar day in and day out?
I mean, if I could just jump off, because it's something that I think is so important for everyone. And I think right now, if anyone's not aware, there's obviously this huge mental health push for industry professionals across Canada. Mind the Bar Canada is a program out in Vancouver that started, that won a international award and received a large grant to push their program forward. But it's about focusing on the kind of certainly mental, but also physical awareness of bartenders. And right now, we're in this world where being a professional bartender has never been better, and the expectations of what bartenders do have never been higher. And so we push ourselves to reach new limits, while at the same time not necessarily taking care of ourselves and our bodies. Mind and body is the most important thing too, right? And if you've ever spent more than 5 years working Friday, Saturday nights, missing holidays, missing all of your events, missing your high school reunions, and you're sick and you're tired and you're still coming into work, and you're not eating right and you're not exercising, then you know that the accumulation, bit by bit by bit by bit, all takes its toll. People have breakdowns. They turn to alcohol or substance abuse and all this kind of stuff, right? There's a lot of potential hazards that come with it, right? There's also a lot of good, and you just have to find a way to balance it all out. For me personally, I like to kind of keep a healthy diet, and I like to exercise and just basic things like that. I mean, everyone knows how they do it. Whether you rock climb or you cycle or you go for a run or whatever it is, you have an outlet. But just the main points are to
Yeah, I think he was supposed to be on. If he wasn't in Fredericton for the first panel, Donnie Norad, who bartends at Dirty Nelly's now, who was at Cheers for a long time, has been bartending in Halifax since 1980. Is a true testament to what it takes to be a bartender as a career. I know he's told me he does yoga every single morning to kind of prepare himself for the day and to keep his body fresh. And I don't know, like, Jeff, you've been rowing your entire life.
Well, I mean, I was a fairly competitive athlete for a little while. And, like when I started bartending, I was like, okay, I'm in good shape. That's fine. I thought that, I could continue on, doing whatever I wanted to because I was in fairly good shape. But, after a while, everything just kind of catches up to you. And if you're not taking time for yourself to, if it's your mind or your body, you're gonna get worn out. So like finding something for yourself that is your time. It's not your best friend's time or your partner's time, but it's for you. Like will re-energize your mind because serving and offering hospitality, which is going outside of your needs and putting other people's needs before yours, is obviously going to take from you because you're constantly giving. So finding a time for yourself is super, super important to lead into your day, lead into your service, and will help no matter what it is.
And
really.
I know, Jeff, you and I have talked before about kind of brands now jumping on top of like another Cazadores. It does a great job. They've started bartending boxing
for bartenders or something like that.
I think it's just important and now in Halifax it's reaching that point where bartenders are reaching a career status. You have to take care of your physical health, and I think it's important that brands kind of jump behind that. And Cazadores has done a good job of like.
Yeah, brands will jump behind any trend though.
True.
It's true. But the thing is, it's like we're all selling alcohol, and alcohol is poisonous to your body. So, if you're not, if you don't have a good relationship with alcohol, then, you're not going to be able to sell alcohol for a long period of time. That's kind of like, the bottom line of it.
Yeah.
I think it's important also we could, four of us and more people in this room as well, I think we could have an entire spirited session on longevity and bartending. I honestly do, mental, physical. I think it's important also to focus on your workspace design. I went to school for kinesiology. I have a Bachelor of Science, DAL, and I took ergonomics. And the bar design, I'm not going to speak for the bartenders that I work with, but I might. I designed the bar to help the bartenders be able to stand in a spot and serve for 9 or 10 hours without hurting themselves. They don't extend their arms. The bar surface is higher. The work surface is closer. We operate on foot pedals. You can touch 52 bottles without moving. All of our sinks are in the right place. Our ice wall's high. Like the work surface under your feet is all padded. Like these are all things. You're never leaning over a fucking speed rail. Like I don't know how many bars I've worked in where your knees are hyperextending the wrong way and you're putting all that stress on the lower back. Like that is so bad for your body. So that's like a huge thing. If you ever do progress past bartending, or if this is a suggestion you can make to your to your owners at some point when they're redesigning a bar is to focus on ergonomics. Like that will take your bartending career and add a handful of years if you're treating your body properly. It's like a sports game, like Jeff was talking about. You're like going in there and doing your body justice. Even Jeff and I had a funny conversation after World Class in Toronto while we were drinking about pouring techniques and not twisting your wrists. That's so bad for your wrists, and instead getting your bottles up. Shaking stance is something that people talk about a lot, where you're like engaging your core, only shaking one tin at a time. None of this double shaking stuff. You're gonna blow your shoulders to pieces. Trust me, you can ask any of these guys. Like, there's so many small things like that that you don't even think about, like planting your feet properly while you're shaking and not leaning, or like having a conversation the wrong way so that your spine is twisted. Like, there's so many small things that you can do. Like, these guys are, it's nice because I can watch two different total styles behind the bar or wherever you go, and you can kind of like pick up tidbits to help you bartend longer. The size of the bottles that you use for your mods, like all that kind of stuff.
And we all get into bartending when we're relatively young, like at peak, physical performance. So, you don't have to go up to your, new 20-year-old bar back and be like, here's how you should lift a keg. Or a lot of people feel like they don't have to, but, if they're lifting the keg, with their back when they're 20, that's fine. But if they want to be in this industry for, 20 years, you're going to have to learn how to do these things so you're not going to blow your back out. Because if you blow your back out and you're a bartender and you're making so much money and you have a mortgage or whatever to pay, like, if you can't work, like, you're done.
You can
like,
learn a lot.
Find a new job.
Yeah, and you can learn a lot from cooks. Mise en place, mise en place, mise en place, mise en place. Learn, and like efficiency is huge.
Sarah.
I was just going to say, Jeff just brought up something that I was going to talk about when you're talking about longevity in the industry, is like financial health too, and how easy it is to like blow that money that's coming in and out. When I look back on how much I made when I was a cabaret bartender, like, I regret so many decisions that I made. And one thing about Donnie Norad, I worked, and Rachel, you can test this, we worked beside him for like 5 years. That guy tracks his tips down to the quarter, claims everything, taxes, like.
Cash is dangerous.
Like, if our cash was off by $1, he would dig through every receipt and
You'd
find
be there
it.
till 6
But
a.m.
it was
until
like
he
he
found that
knew
dollar.
where his money was coming from, where it was going. I think that that's something that when you're young you can like really take for granted, because you make this much money but you spend it the next day because you're gonna make that much money the next night, and then that doesn't happen, and then you're out that like. I was gonna ask you guys, like, a lot of you have mortgages or businesses or something like that, and like, at what point did that click for you that it was like, or was it always like that?
I think like when for me, like Jeff said, we all start in this business when we're young, and it's cash and it's fun, and we're living with a bunch of roommates, and you drink till all hours of the night, and then you have a slice of pizza and you go back to work and you feel fine, and you're 20 and you can do that. But eventually that lifestyle starts to take its toll. And then also you have to think, is this going to be your career, or is it just like a 5-year summer job? Just think about it. If it's any other career, if you're a young accountant, for example, you're getting up every day, putting on your work clothes, going to work. You've got work to do at your desk or wherever, and you go home, and then you have your social time. But it's a slippery slope with this industry of social time is blended into work time. And then that kind of goes till 4:30 a.m. or even later. And the next thing you know, you're 26 or whatever, and you've been lifting improperly or shaking with both arms. And when I made the decision, okay, this is, and I was going to be a teacher, and I did a 6-month internship at St. Agnes Junior High, and I realized almost immediately I didn't want to be a teacher. I was going to be a firefighter and all these other things. And kept coming back to bartending, and realized if this is going to be my career, I have to treat it like a job. It's a career. And the most important bar tool you have is you, because it is physical. If your shoulders break down, you're just going to pray for stirred cocktails to get ordered. And I know guys that can't shake cocktails. They can't. They work on one side of the bar and they just get handed kits for stirred cocktails, and they pour wine because they've torn their labrum. I know guys that unfortunately have partied so hard they ran themselves a bath when they got home and they swallow water and they're dead.
Yeah, guys die.
One of my best friends went out one night. His thing was lighting a candle, reading a book, and having a cup of tea before bed. And he rolled over, and that was it. So this is a job. There's a lot of money at stake. Treat it seriously, and it will pay you back. If you take it for granted, you're not going to last very long. If you look at anyone in this business, 20 years plus as a bartender, or some of the older reps and ambassadors, they're not out till 4 or 5 a.m. You know, they're living a healthy lifestyle because they have a lot of work to do. Something that I do that if Kyle was here, he hates, but I always do. Will kind of hates it too, but is I arrange my mise en place, my well, differently every time I work. Because I think, and I've trained all the bartenders I've trained in the past 10 years to do the same, the biggest thing, and you can speak to this kinetically, is that autopilot of, I know where my rum bottle is, it's over here. But repetitive motion leads to breakdown when all of a sudden you do something different. Right? So if you rearrange your bottles, then you have to look. You have to keep your mind engaged every time. Where is that? Because if you do something different that one time, that's when you pull something.
Yeah.
And also, you just get dumber. If you're always like, I know where everything is, you think like, I'm moving super fast, but your brain's actually turned off. It's all muscle memory, which is a skill in itself. Yeah. But if you're always looking for something, you're super engaged. And you will notice a change in how fast your brain is kind of firing. And I'm not saying like a total halt, but I mean, we'll just switch bottles. Yeah, you know, left to right, right to left, front to back. Just do little changes here and there, and you'll feel a difference in your brain activity.
I think that's a great point. So I want to open kind of the floor at this point. Has anyone had any questions or comments to any five of us or anyone else in the audience? Anne-Marie. Yeah, go ahead.
We're speaking a lot about like our self-responsibility, like responsibility to ourselves and taking care of ourselves. But I want to kind of throw it out bigger. But like, do you guys think there's something to be said about holding like business owners, management, like people in positions, you know, the leaders of a bar team? Do you think there's something to be said about their perspective or like their responsibility to their staff, and in the sense of like hours worked or putting people in tough situations, or just like in general? Do you think that they hold any responsibility for the well-being of
100%.
Yeah. I mean, responsibility comes from the top, right? So if and I've certainly worked for these people. If you've got an owner who's hammered Friday and Saturday night, then you don't feel so bad, drinking in the bar until 4 a.m. once they leave, right? And at the same time, I've worked for people who work their asses off, and I know if I'm not feeling 100% that day, I need to still work my ass off because I don't want to let them down. So it kind of works both ways. I mean, if your leaders are your reflection of how you want your staff to behave. If your leaders aren't showing respect to you, of honoring your health, you're not feeling that well, go home. I'd rather you go home now than get us all fucking sick. And then we all have to take a day off, right? So leaders are important.
I think the onus, though, should always still be like on yourself. Like, obviously, this industry can chew you up and spit you out, right? Like, there's people that have and will die. There's industry leaders that have been some of the most influential bartenders of all time that have, succumbed to their personal demons in some way, shape, or form. And ultimately, we can hope that like we're working for a system or an owner that will take care of you and support you and positively find ways to make you better. But at the same time, the industry as a whole is dangerous, right? I mean, what we do, like Jeff's saying, we serve alcohol. It is poison, right? There's so many different forms of bartending, and this industry has so many different things, right? Whether it's a small neighborhood pub or a big nightclub in Miami or, a fine cocktail bar in the middle of Chicago, whatever it is, there's so many different ways that you can approach how you do what you do. But the onus for health and improvement should always be on yourself and taking care of yourself and not necessarily taking the industry as, as it comes to you, right? Know your role in it.
Yeah. Well, in that vein, the reason I bring it up is because one of my biggest pulls or draws to fact that it reaches globally and it reaches really big, and here we are, like communities getting together, people getting together in a room. We could talk all day about all of these things, but the way I look at it, I hope that from these discussions, something better,
Yeah.
like better change can happen. So like, it's great to talk about health, and I absolutely agree. I think we should all work on it individually, but I definitely think it's cool to like maybe, think about how can we promote, I think there's been a bit of a shift, and there's definitely more management owners, people, moving in the direction of caring more about health and mental health and addiction and things like that. And I think that's great, but I think like, I know that's not there, and it might never be that every single business is good to work for and healthy to work for, but I do hope that like talking about this would make it, you know what I mean? Like,
For
let's
sure.
get better.
Not
as a
everyone
industry.
offers healthcare and stuff like that. That's
Yeah.
the thing I was gonna say to everyone. Get insurance, right? I mean, like get critical disability or injury insurance for yourself. Get life insurance too.
Thanks
right?
to my wife for
Like,
that.
Yeah, exactly. Take care of yourselves, right? I mean, for me, the golden rule of bartending is like do what your mom would tell you to do, right? I mean, like wear those comfy shoes and make sure that you've got support and make sure you're eating a healthy lunch. Like those little things take care of itself. But at the same time, like your employers, I think, should have a onus of responsibility to offer, whether it's dental insurance or there's Blue Cross or whatever it is. Some do, some don't. But I mean, again, if not, search it and get it on your own. Right?
I think it's important to like it's up to all of us, young bartenders and managers and owners, to create that culture of care. And something that Mind the Bar does in Vancouver, or what their kind of platform is for my generation of bartenders, it was like this unwritten honor code of I've never taken a sick day.
Yeah.
Right? And I've gone to work like I should not have been at work. I shouldn't be serving guests, but you would be looked down upon or thought less of if you took that sick day that you're weak, right? And it's up to all of us to create that culture of, for someone, it was not necessarily like the flu, but who's just maybe feeling down, to be able to go to their owner or manager and say, not really doing that great right now. Like I could use a weekend to just chill. And for that owner to be like, okay, I got it. Like, we'll figure it out. No, you gotta fucking work. Like, it's Friday night, you can't take Friday night off. But if all of us are kind of sympathetic to that environment of healthcare, then it'll give those people confidence to be honest about their ills, mental, physical, or otherwise, to approach their boss and say, listen, I need to take a break because I'm on the verge and who knows what could happen.
Yeah.
And that's what Mind the Bar has done. And
Yeah, big shout out to Mind the Bar.
I mean,
Alex Black, who is
Alex Black, who I work with at Hawksworth.
friend of Sovereign and brand ambassador for Sovereign Canada.
Yes.
What?
What?
All rights reserved.
PM.
Copyright.
Plug.
But if you're interested, you should really look into it. It's a really cool program, but it's basically about mental health in the bar because, unfortunately, Vancouver had a run of accidental suicides and deaths due to over-intoxication, substance abuse, depression, all bartenders, all young people. And unfortunately, probably because they didn't feel they could turn anywhere, turn to anyone to give them any kind of help. Because we are in this business of life's a party and always wear a happy face and show up for work the next day, and you're like slugging coffee in pre-shift, and then you unlock that door and it's showtime, right? And some people couldn't do it anymore. So, but I think it's all of us to create that environment of, it's okay to feel sad, and let's talk about it, and then come back tomorrow feeling better.
Yeah. So I think I want to wrap up now. It's been I think a great session. I want to thank all of you guys for being here. I want to thank the panelists for being here. Just to quickly plug myself because of self-confidence.
This is delicious, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, the Oaxacan in Japan. Keys. Yeah. I just think that the progression of this, I just want the kind of the lining of this conversation to be the progression in the city. Like, this needed to be a Halifax 2.0 spirited session because there is so much to talk about in the last 8 years, 9, 10 years in Halifax, the progression of the cocktail spirits industry and just bartending in general. I just want to thank all of you guys for coming out. I really appreciate it. Again, just thank you to Mezcal Coach for kind of putting things on today. Mezcal Coach is the first sovereign product available at the NSLC. It's at the port right now. A bunch of new agave spirits keep arriving into Halifax, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's to you guys to thank. And mezcal in 1996 was not an option or even a thought. So yeah, I just want to thank all of you guys for coming out, and I appreciate it. So give yourselves.
Let's give a round of applause to Evan.
Thank you. And that's it. Thank you so much. Enjoy your afternoon.